On the 7th November 2021, at dawn around 3 a.m., I received a distress call from some of my citizens. They called me basically to inform me about flooding as a result of tidal waves that came from the sea.
Mayi nala, kaka aba job, chapua ba edefunam, ahoda ka homen elashini. Ye jodo fifia mayi nala le, mado nachi, abenachi o mashike na, mo kata, enye muza zauna, kaka chapua ba klo kata kodwi. Ni maga kuta para kamanu, yenye chochi homen, oba momuno.
Hafi manajo nyamala ngodo mo ala ba fiaka nyakole chapo gbo nyamanya ba chapo te mo ba afimo ta gbo magba ha awusa na mawfa mo fofo mo wu ha na makara jiba atinwa gano anigba.
When I got there, I realized that a lot of homes have been washed with the water, the sea water, and many of the citizens were standing in the water, surrounding their homes. You know, the water engulfed them, entered their bedrooms, in fact, their kitchens, everywhere, including their animals were submerged in water.
Chapova Salakopo Bama like a Bajaba, Yamapo, Nyadadabapo, Nyanto Yamapo, Yanofo, Okata, Chapo Kokoji.
When this thing occurred, some people ran out of the area. Those who could afford to run out, they did, but the vulnerable ones were still in the water, the pools of water, when we went to meet them.
Nyanto ni matema unareko ala bonaba duna na ma matenta no garam be akunareko kana ga tenjia ina kudu akumuraka se ko gafa ko ma wi ba fofo no manya la amonyata ni matin adoshira ko nyinareko
omukata uju ko chochi home mabachi machi chochi home sheji ni agbangre ngwe oko ala banla muhammad lashini nama nanaka ha choga adara chiareko na pastor manya amamuvola doma nyuto ha makaraji bana nyamle chochi pomo kaka onye pastor anya doma nyuto nya mala chochi pomo basere gba fio tia mala titi ha nyama kopipi tiramo moto shi matiala malema.
People lost their property, including the animals that they were rearing, their livelihood, their economic activities got stagnated. You know, whole canoes got lost because some were washed into the sea, and then that was the end of it. Whole nets, fishing nets, got torn, destroyed.
Dog come out of me, you may put the come out of Nami darora chama rokata glana. If you are Mukatoba, Trunami Baza.
They put up this their various houses using local materials like palm fronds and so on and so forth. So as the water came around, these people got dislodged.
Fia mononiro bamazomuma fam. Laba garamo diafi koko asia chami. Ima va boma koko boma umo kofavana. Maladoma.
Yeah, being the native of this town, what I've witnessed is where the first school was is far from the sea. Before you walk from the school to the sea, it will take something like 15 to 20 minutes before you get closer to the sea. And where we are now, currently, is the third place that we are relocating to. The tidal wave became so strong to the extent that the sea level is now above the land. And due to that, the tidal wave has disturbed the school and it now collapsed most of our building. Our study materials have been taken away by the sea. We have no get materials to teach the children with. Apart from that too, the classroom where the children are supposed to stay in a conducive atmosphere that will help them to progress their learning is not there. This place that we are now, we are not safe.
Apa biara vai mle kuvomo. Baraka chapu varani. Imi bova tefeya. Tefeya mi va. Ya chapo gava furem nami. Mi apa teacher to school nami. Baraka mi use. Mi va school mi ya homa. Mi atrova. Chapo va kaka mi apa school ho. Mi apa gba gerogu. Reading book o mi po. Mi apa de so we kata onga.
We have literature from the local people, and we also have people who have talking from their expert point of view. They tell us Keta is lying at a level lower than the sea itself.
The climate is changing, and as a result of this, is causing ice in the polar regions to contribute more water to the ocean. Now, this is causing flooding in most of our coastal communities in parts of Africa and in Ghana. Now, when you come to Ghana, there are low-lying areas along the coast, like Keta and the Greater Accra region. However, some factors also combine with global warming and sea level rise to cause flooding. For instance, when there are high waves and strong winds, these factors combine to cause flooding in our coastal communities. And that is an example of what happened in Keta in recent times.
Per the figures that we got from the National Disaster Management Organization, they placed the figure at 1,557 individuals that were displaced, and these were occupying 295 homes. Government's long-term solution, this is a perennial occurrence, and various governments have been looking at what they could do.
You can decide to create what we call groins or sea protection or coastal protection. But there's also a challenge with that, because when you create coastal protection, it creates challenges to the adjacent coast, to the next door neighbor, which can be Togo. And the other solution could also be relocating the people from their current location to a bit more further inland. But that also has its own challenges. It comes with land ownership challenges and traditional and cultural challenges as well.
If I have to choose between the Keta port and then the sea groins, I'll choose the Keta port, because the Keta port, in essence, will provide livelihood, economic activities, and then it will make the town very busy economically for the people. My appeal is to my government, central government, to speed up. And I am very much encouraged by the way government has attached so much importance to the issue, and then voted a huge sum of money to do feasibility study to see what actually is the way forward for our people. I'm very, very grateful, and I pray that things should be done rapidly to alleviate our suffering.
This community is a very big community, and then it's a coastal community as well. The major occupation of my people is fishing. In fact, for the past 30 years, this community has been battling with the sea. Whenever there is high tidal wave, it does enters their rooms, their kitchens, and then displays them. Over 5,000 houses so far have been displaced within the past 30 years that I'm seeing.
According to global.gov, in 2020, the global sea level set new record high of 3.6 inches above 1993 sea level. We spoke to some elderly in the community who has seen the effect of climate change to what used to be their homes.
I was born 1948.
Here.
Yeah, in this town. I mean, the town up to today. When I was young, before you reach the sea, you walk about 1 mile from the houses to the sea. You see, now, sir, we pull the canoes ashore. Yeah. But now, where can you pull the canoe? Where can the canoe can land? Nowhere. We are natives of this town, natives of Ada, and natives of Ghana. We are weeping because now, look at my age now. Last June I was 70. What can I do to build a new house again if my house is taken away by a sea? So it's very, very, very serious. Very, very serious. And we'll be happy if they can hear through you. They can hear the voice of the people of Ada West. Yeah. Now, if let's say by 20 years I'm gone, promise I'll die. So I'm worried about our children. Where will they stay? Where will they stay?
We need sea defense. Without sea defense, I can confidently say in the next 20 years or 10 years, this community will be no more. The sea will erode all the land and then we'll have no place to live. And since this is the only place we also have in the country, we are appealing to the government of Ghana and then the international world to come to our aid.
When tidal waves happen, this lake overflows and floods the town.
Actually, the tidal waves has been disturbing the area for since time immemorial. Anytime the tidal waves go high, it takes away some of our buildings into the sea, and sometimes the nets that the fish shuffles use for their fishing. So recently the same thing occurs, and most of our buildings, our nets and boats have been washed away by the tidal waves into the sea. We are looking at a permanent solution to this problem, and since we try to do studies, we have realized that the only solution will be the sea defense, where they brings in high heavy stones to protect and therefore prevent the sea from getting into the community.
Honorable Philip Sai and Mr. Emmanuel Bese wonder what will be the future home for the next generations if the rising sea level persists.
Ghana is one of the countries that adopted the Paris Agreement in 2015 at the 21st Conference of Parties in Paris. But that hasn't been Ghana's first action towards climate change. In 2011, Ghana passed the Renewable Energy Act to provide for the development, management, utilization, sustainability, and adequate supply of renewable energy for generation of heat and power and for related matters. In 2012, Ghana launched the National Climate Change Adaptation Strategy to improve societal awareness and preparedness for climate change, enhance the mainstreaming of climate change into national development planning. In 2013, there was a national climate policy aimed at effective adaptation, social development, and mitigation to climate change effects. And in 2015, nationally determined conditions How does these national policies translate in our urban areas? Let's take a look at Accra. Made capital of Gold Coast and then Ghana in 1877, Accra has grown into one of the busiest cities in Africa, home to the Pan-African movement, a thriving center for arts and an inspiration for innovation thinking and action. According to the greenhouse gas inventory, Accra generated a total of nearly 2.4 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in the year 2015. On average, a person residing in Accra would emit about 1.2 tons of carbon dioxide per year. Most emissions in Accra, that is 44%, were generated due to solid waste and water waste treatment, followed by 30% by transportation, and finally 26% by stationary energy. What do the people of Accra know about climate change?
The weather system, unlike the first, it has changed drastically. At first when we were young, the rain, when we enter into June, July, the rain fall nice. But at this time, it hasn't. The weather has changed, the heat has changed. And because of, the unnecessary cooking around the town, all over the place, all over heated.
One can easily spot some few effects of climate change in Accra. For example, the rise in sea level. Secondly, one can see erosion in Accra. One can see floods that happen every year and that destroy properties, that destroys human life. And also one can experience hotter temperatures in Accra.
So what is Accra doing about it? Accra's Climate Action Plan is the first subnational climate plan developed in Ghana. The plan sets out a series of priority actions to be implemented between 2020 and 2025, which would set the city on a pathway towards resilient and sustainable development in 2050. The priority areas include solid waste and wastewater, energy, building and industry, transportation, land use and physical planning, mainstreaming the climate change threat in development processes. And this plan, they say, would periodically be revised and updated in the future.
In conformity to the Basel Convention, Ghana is operationalizing the law on the management of hazardous and electronic waste that has the objective of preventing damage to human health and that of the environment.
Through this climate action plan and subsequent revisions, Accra aims to reduce emissions by 27% below business as usual by 2030.
As the lights turned green from red, we embarked on a journey to Adafua, from the nation's capital, to meet the old, young, and entrepreneurs who have experienced life-changing events due to sea level rise, flooding, and erosion in coastal communities, and the socio-economic impact on their local community and the world at large.
Sea level rise can occur at any place in the world. I've heard that because of the ice melting and this, sea level has risen. But how much has the sea level risen is another issue.
According to NASA, there has been at least 4 millimeters rise in the sea level per annum. But is this rise significant enough for us to be concerned?
In the 70s, we started seeing that the sea had been so vigorous or boisterous, and the waves were so strong, and it was just eroding the land over the area.
The erosion took away the 4 townships, took away the small villages or towns, again like my holy village, Azizanya, took them all away.
To the people of Adafua and its neighboring towns, what could this coastal erosion be due to?
The effect of the dam on the river water has brought about the erosion over this area.
Before the dam, around August, July, August, because of the rain, the river water will overflow its bank to Ada, and the water will enter the sea at Ada. The water will come so much that it will enter the sea and will go on top, because it is lighter than the sea water. It will flow on the sea water up to Tema, and then towards Lomé, and then in that the same direction towards the southern part, towards America. That's what we have been saying, towards the southern. So many miles into the sea.
Huge volume of water gets into the sea almost every second, and it calms the sea, the waves of the sea as it moves in. At Ada, it's about 40 to 50 kilometers into the sea. The fishermen were telling us that on the sea, looking direct to the estuary, they could get fresh water. The absence of that discharge, huge discharge into the sea, is bringing about the strength of the high waves that we are getting.
Well, when you watch the front view of the river, you see it's very rough and very deep here. And this river is just coming because of the sea waves, the sea tides that enter into the river. The tide gets very high and then it starts eroding the whole beach. About in a month, we lose more than 5 to 8 meters of land.
Having lost his first beach resort by the coast of Ada, the CEO of Midas Beach Resort has hoisted flags and has been moving them inland with the erosion. He also uses temporary structures like chairs and the umbrellas to avoid seeing his investments being washed away by the sea. Moving through the deserted coast from Adafua to Pute, nothing stops us from enjoying the fresh coconuts. Fort Congestine, built in 1783 by the Danes for trading, now stands in isolation since being washed away by the sea waves. Next to the traces of the fort is the building of Mr. Okanse, the merchant. His mansion was well spoken of in the late 60s and early 70s. Classroom blocks, partly on the coast, with majority on the sea. Abandoned magistrate courts in an abandoned town. Ada boasts of outstanding beaches and exquisite riverfront scenery. Millions displaced from where they once called home. The sea like an unpaid landlord, driving away the masses and swallowing the rest. Now there is mostly nothing but sea, sand, and broken frames left behind where life used to be.
After the independence in 1957, rural urban migration in Ghana is increasing. Employment opportunities in urban centers such as Accra, Kumasi, and Sekondi Takoradi attract people from all rural areas to find decent work in the capital cities. Here in Accra, about 5.4 million people are concentrated on 256 kilometer square piece of land.
Urbanization is one of the most intensive and human-driven, factors that threaten biodiversity. You can see in Ghana that most of our cities are expanding,
which means that there is pressure in terms of growth. Urbanization would definitely come with a complex mix of changes, including land use modification, environmental disturbance, which increase the pressure on local remnant biodiversity areas.
Today, we are in Nima, one of the population-dense areas in Accra. We'll be meeting with a group of women who are embarking on various community projects to reverse the environmental and social problems caused by overpopulation.
Mothers Club is a Mercubia, young school, and Tebrofo. Inti Yadwin say any pabe Kakrabi, near Tenasi say. As I say, ye be at the boy a bronze. He said, maybe a chamono, Sabi, so who send ye binum tibia city or near my ha. Na ask him. Ah, near Didi Muana, Yamen Chadia, Nanui. Sa abrofu so be mu se wo mpese o mu ne ye kuya ne asina ha de eni asase be dan ya ye kuya e ho na o mu kire ye mu se ye ne aye fie betimi aye ye bedua bi tonturam botom container bi a asa yanka wokoto atwene no betimi adua enso e be ye ampa wo mu yi video bi kire ye no kurani na neje.
This project can make a big change in Nima. That's my community. If you look around, if you compare Kanda and Nima, you can see a lot of trees in Kanda. In Nima, you can't find any. And we should ask ourselves why.
In terms of urbanization, it really has strong effect on habitat, fragmentation. And urban agriculture can help reduce this fragmentation in terms of habitat.
But one challenge is that a hanuman, if you are hanuman, a rented place, and Shadan Yenya Yaku being neighbor high and wouldn't mean a full control of the place. Because we are used to the place now for and I'm moreover, I have months though I knew about the gate. Send a nippon and a dot, and the Napa and the amount more to go around. Not with deep plant maybe. And these are the challenges here.
Edipepi enaje atum na mpomi ankasa me fie so ba manesle tomatoes maye jene maye mako atadwe kra maye bi entino nkrofo a ye ban me ne behu ye no wo musu giye ntumu fisesa wo ya wankasa wow ema wo sika anka de be kodwomu akose no ebeka am watimi de atua school fees books ni ade ama wo de abo
so mo ni ejipa oduan so e ba ma won ama vitamins ana won kasa so ade no ubete a fresh na woti wa de enye so be kwa kwata bi aduase de na bro ana se de be wo hwehwe a wo da na efichira enu anu.
And it's also good for us to see how planting is done. We see the product in the market, but we don't know how it is planted. We don't know the process it goes through before it gets to the final consumer. But this project is a project that will help the women who have never been to the villages, who have never seen how planting is done, to try their hands on it.
Enti sa edwuma ya boa me mahu se mpo enchanse no a wo boa no akobola am ya ji usika no ubetimi adua bibia anyamfasode wo
menim se by afuba ko ebe san abade na yem se the whole ebe hu gardens no more of the gardens no e wo nkrofobia fi because am ye ne je ho.
I'm the general manager here at Hikma Agro Services Limited. Here at Hikma, we are pioneers in using climate-smart agriculture in the production of seed yam. Plants need a lot of water. So here at Hikma, we use the drip irrigation method, where the drip irrigation ensures an efficient supply of water to each plant on the bed. One of the challenges we have is the extreme heat during the dry season. Usually, when it gets so hot, the plants need a lot of water in order to grow. And so we definitely have an increase in the supply of water to each plant. And sometimes the water here is not even enough for the plants. We have two phases of farming. We have the screenhouse farming and we have the open field farming. During the heat season, we record very high temperatures inside the screenhouses as well. And so we have developed some cooling methods in order to curb this heat, such as running cold water through the drip fines, and also we have misters, which increases the humidity within the screenhouse. We have fans, which also blow air in order to cool down the temperatures within the screenhouse.
Hikma Farms is one of the businesses we have actually supported. What Hikma Farms sought to do was to solve the problem of food security. And he did that by coming up with what we call developing yam seedlings, multiplication of yam seedlings. Ordinarily, what one would do is to take a tuber of yam and perhaps cut it into maximum 3 or 4. But he came up with a technology that will give you yam nodes, and you are able to multiply the nodes into several thousands of seedlings that you can now plant and have yam. We thought the idea was brilliant.
The devastating nature of the rise in sea level has been a great worry to the residents of Agavaji, Agokeji, and Salakope and other neighboring towns in the K2 municipalities for several years now.
The coast of Keita in the Volta region of Ghana has the beautiful side viewing with a colorful nature of the land. But on the ground, it's a different story. More than 5,000 residents has been displaced by the strong tidal waves which are caused by the rise in sea level. Experts said in 2011 that if the sea continues to rise between 2 to 6 meters annually, about 2,000 residents in the Keita municipality will be displaced entirely.
Concerning the tidal waves, I may say this started about some years ago. But to our surprise, about 10 years ago, it surfaced again. Started from Kita to Keji, Vojan, even to nearby Agaveji here, where you can see the end of the defense. From here to where the last house is about 500 meters away. All those houses have been broken by the tidal waves. And it is eating into the land steadily, small, until it reaches my house here. You know, as the houses are being broken down, the debris is under the sea. You can see our canoes. They're supposed to be in sea now, on the sea. The net will entangle with the debris, the broken houses in the sea, the iron rods, everything, and the net will be turned into pieces. But let me tell you for sure that we are entering March. Into April, you come here, you won't see any house again anymore. That's my promise to you.
This will be the second time in less than 6 months that tide waves have hit the Keita municipality in the Volta region, causing a humanitarian crisis as thousands of local residents in communities along the coastal belt, including Kejukope, Keita Central, and Abutiakope, got displaced and stranded.
I'm not around me in school, but I experience so much. I forget do. I do not need to fear crammerly. Sometimes I never parents I do. One $1 from my cafe. I came to school. I you any agbanta. Matter rich na get na I got a little bit.
Takoro kono ni bu ko abo jaka. Be jaka ko fo. Akuru pitu le jibu.
See the sea become very high.
Akuru kwe do le jibu ko. Ni ba no to. E ko ngana bri. Kaka akoro. Abri.
Just like a tonight.
Ko ni apura na bi. Apura kahamata. Ko bri. Payam. Siang. Ajo miapo ina la kanyoko tu sampo kan naka na ma dun san hawo to ha ma chiga ta yeji ko nyela sere shishileke ko nyeli kakate for phone la manai.
Climate change has been a global issue, but the one which is more devastating and glaring is sea level rise and its impact on coastal communities. When you come to Ghana, our east coast is mostly affected. It actually causes coastal inundation and floods, destroying some coastal structures and human habitation. So, in fact, it's a serious problem, but at some point, if we are not affected, you may not actually even know. And a lot of researches are being done on it to inform the policymakers to actually try and come out with policies that will help us have lasting solution to it.
Yes, if you ask the question that have I observed any change in climatic conditions, I would say yes, I have. Yes, indeed, it has some sort of negative impact ranging from their production activities, right from planting to harvesting and drying, as well as selling. So yes, for me, I see this impacting every aspect of the production chain. Because of these changes, for instance, the time they used to plant their cocoa has either moved forward or backwards, depending on the geographical location in which you find yourself. The time they do some sort of farm management practices has also changed, all due to the fact that this climate changes in weather has brought new pests and diseases on board. So what they used to do, now they have changed. It has changed, and they are doing things that will suit the current trend. One funny thing they said was that it was the act of God, signifying the end of time. But some also are positive about the main causes, such as deforestation, the fact that people are just indiscriminately cutting down trees, the fact that people are using heavy machines on the land, the fact that we are planting and cultivating close to water bodies. These are some of the things that from the awareness study that we carried out in 2013 came out strongly from the farmers. Okay. led to diversification, trying to not only go into cocoa production, but to add other things like animal rearing and other food crops on top. Some have also tried to inculcate agroforestry into their cocoa production, trying to plant more shade trees, trying to adhere to good agronomic practices, all in a way to try to cope or mitigate some of the effects of the climate change that they are seeing on their cocoa farm.
For you,
I would say yes.
Okay.
I would say yes, because I try to plant some things over here, but all of a sudden the rain stopped. I will start from when I was expecting the rains. The rains were not coming, and when the rains will stop, I didn't know. All of a sudden, everything came to an end, and the crops started to die. Yes. So you see, I plant some vegetables here. Everything has perished because when I was not expecting the rains to stop, it stopped. So even I was trying to water them, but no source of water. They cut down the trees anyhow. Hey, we are fortunate to have a forest here, but because this forest or a forest reserve, because they've named it after the god here, people are afraid to get to it. Yes, but if we try to stop cutting down the trees, well, I think everything will go back to normalcy.
Sɛ ɔpɛ ne tua so kɔ na sɛ nsuo no antɔ ntam di a ɛna ɛtumi de ɔhaw no ɛma yɛ yɛni sika ɛna meka sɛ yɛ sikasɛm ɛsa na koko so nyinaa yɛ dɛ ɛso asa na ɛso asa kyerɛ sɛ ɔpɛ no akɔ anim ɛma nso agya hyehyeɛ nso ɛba yɛ afuom ɛma agya hye yɛ nneɛma no sɛ ɛhye nneɛma no sɛ apɛ na wo sɛ ɔhaw ato ɛ yɛni sika bi a yɛde bɛyɛ deɛ ɛko ebi sɛ bibia efuo no mu ana yɛfa wo na sɛ sɛ gya bɛhye na hifa na ɛkɔkɔnyɛ sika wo na afei ma ɛno mu yɛtumi dwe ho kakra nti sɛ nsuo no yi a no ntɛ na yɛ so yɛduadua bibi a ɛhɔ ne nsuo yɛbɛhu sɛ anigye bi wɔ hɔ a yɛbɛhu sɛ yɛso yɛbɛnya.
But when it comes to dry season, I do involve in farming. It's a problem to us when it comes to the dry season. During the rainy season, we only know farming in the north here to be in the rainy season. Not all farmers are involved when it comes to the dry season because we don't know how to go about it. Sometimes we have the ponds, the rivers, and the dams, but the machines and the things to help us do the farming, we don't have it. There's a change. You realize that sometimes the rainy season will come early. So when it comes early, farmers will just rush into preparing, and sometimes you realize that the rain will come once and it will stop. For us here, how it affects us is somehow seriously because to us, we do use solar system, and you know how expensive it is. So not all farmers can afford it.
Zerma ka ta kunnum jira yirna ka ta jira ka yun ta ji shukuru ko wuma ma mokal ma na ka ta ku sokra to na la jirma ma ku ta kana tunu ta tur mokal ma ka jirna ta yuhra ar yirna jira ka ta jira nirma na nurma don ti yan gu jela yan kam nan ta par mo ta talman kar zon kan katalan pura ban ta bang na reshilinya kablan kana nta par mo ta talman mbahna karlan zon kan katalan pura kama ka ta kusura kama ka ta kusura ta bor konti ta minaran ya konti yin naran ya Tunggu ma kata kusukra.
The agricultural sector of Ghana is at great risk from the impact of climate change. This is because of the change in weather patterns, which determine yields and crop production in these areas. Changing climatic conditions pose significant threat to the growth of the agricultural sector in Ghana because of heavy reliance on rain-fed production and drought vulnerability, especially as less than 2% of the agricultural area is under irrigation.
My name is Dr. Eligabe. I'm a senior lecturer at the Department of Horticulture of the Faculty of Agriculture, Commonwealth University of Science and Technology. Agriculture in Ghana is dominated by many smallholder farmers whose livelihood depends on the quality of the produce they generate and the volume of the produce they are able to generate from the farms. If they are able to produce enough, their livelihoods improve if they are able to access good quality and lucrative markets which buy their produce. But unfortunately, the effects of climate change affects their production, which leads to low productivity, low production, and poor quality of produce. It is, however, important that the farmers are able to develop highly resilient agricultural systems, which make them able to mitigate the effect of climate. In order to do this, there's a need for them to adopt climate-smart agricultural practices, such as use of irrigation systems, use efficient ways of controlling pests and managing soil and water resources in order to be highly productive in their farming systems. We believe that if efforts are made by farmers, by donor community and other institutions that work together with farmers, their livelihoods will be improved and they can become major elements in both developments of the nation and in the communities in which they find themselves.
Due to the rapid change in our climate system, most farmers have to resort to the use of wastewater for irrigation, which has diverse effect on the consumer of these vegetables.
My name is Nana Janto, a broadcast journalist and also somebody into green initiative and green creativity. The reality is that some farmers have been selling off their cocoa lands for galamsey activities because they feel that it is more lucrative to sell the land for galamsey activities than the cocoa activities. the reality is that farmers are complaining about the excessive heavy metals that are found in the water bodies, and these same water bodies are used for crop production. So in effect, I think that climate change would continue, especially in our part of the country. We are found in a tropical part of the world, and unfortunately, we are cutting down the trees. We are virtually doing anything anyhow, and it's going to create a lot of problem for us. We can do it. Let's think green. Let's protect the environment. Let's do the right thing. And I'm sure that if we back it with political will, we'll be safe and we can be able to mitigate the challenges that comes with climate change.
The climate is changing. It is hitting very hard, especially in Africa and Ghana respectively. It is causing longer dry seasons, variable and unpredictable rainfall, increasing in temperature, pests and diseases, and other unfavorable conditions which is affecting agricultural activities in the country.
Ne etseja sɔgbɔ na mia míaƒe agble geɖewo le ebame alo wole míeyɔnɛ be tɔka wole bame ta ne etsi dza sɔgbɔ nenema míaƒe agblemenukuwo va tsina etsi me ta ewɔnɛ be míete harvest na alo míete ŋena nu fũu fofugble yi ko míete dena le míaƒe tɔka alo míaƒe agblewo dzi eye ne fofoŋua wɔ nenema hã míkɔ afia aɖa aha kpeteshi sugarcane juice míkɔ ɖana kpeteshi alebe míkɔ yina ɖe asiwo me hafi akpɔ míaƒe gbe sia gbe ƒe abolo. Ne míezã fofoŋuawo hã míezãna sugar, míeƒlena sugar wodɔnɛ tso ge akɔ vɛ akɔ ɖa akpeteshi hafi míakpɔ míaƒe gbe sia gbe ƒe abolo ɖe tsi madzamadza nyuie ta akpe.
Etsi dza la vɔ abe dzingbatɔ va ma etsi ɖe dzana eƒona míaƒe ŋkuwo be wokɔ nɔ edɔ mía fi etsi la va gbɔ ɖe ŋu ɖe dzi gake sia ne tsi ɖoa le sia etsi ɖeke megadza kpɔ tsi dzadza hã megadze dzi abe leke wodzana le dziŋo ve ma me tsã no tsa nyo na wo fisia fisia le dzi sia kuɖiɖi ma la etsi va dza sia yiwo ko do sia katã woku wo dzedze ge nyo abe tsi ma dza nyo no.
Nenye be tsi dzadza ne ɖoɖo ŋu ye hã nate ŋu awɔ dɔ ade ŋkuvia ɖe to meku gbɔ be wo hã ase nane gɔme anyinya kete na agble dem ɖo anyinya kete na agble dem ɖo ne gbe eme gate ga yi sukulu hã nenye be tsi dzadza ne ɖoɖo ŋu ye hã ne ku ŋkuvia ɖe de to ne me wo ge ɖe me no wo hã ase nane me ta made akpe be mawo ne ve me sia me ŋu kple su be ŋkuʋuʋuiwo ke ʋuʋum fia hã woate ŋu do kple ŋu nyuiwo kple su be kpɔ alɔ ɖe mia ŋu ne míazɔ ɖe ŋgɔgbe ta mede akpe na mawo gake season ya mea la edɔ gbɔtɔwo ge nya kata fi me be dɔ gbɔtɔ míawo me gbɔtɔ mí dɔm gake míaƒe dɔ ƒe me dzedzem nya kata fi me gblɔ nya ma nye be ewɔ dɔ gake tsia ke le be wòdza ɖe dzi no ne na akpɔ edɔ yake ne woƒe eme tso ŋua etsia me va dze o etsia me va dze o mate me be mía me gbɔtɔ mí dɔm kaka míaƒe dɔ ƒe me dzedzem o susu ya kata me gblɔ nya ya enye ya etsi me dzadza ne mí o ne míawo míate ŋu awɔ dɔ aɖu ŋu o ne tsi me dza o ye ne wò dɔ ɖe a karaji ba do ka na wa tin okpo mo chunwo makpogo.
The climate change has had a lot of effect on the agriculture activities. For the past few years, the activities of climate change has resulted in a low yield. For instance, we have a lot of farmlands that don't have rains because of the erratic nature of rainfall. And because most of the farmers here depend on rain-fed agriculture. And now that the two major rainy seasons don't happen as it used to be, but now it has changed. We are championing climate smart agriculture. You should go in for a variety that takes a shorter period of time to maturity, so that when you get a little rainfall, by the time the rains will cease, the crop itself has already established. So actually, to say that climate change has not affected agriculture in any way, it's impossible.
Agriculture is an important part of Ghana's economy and contributes roughly 20% of its gross domestic product. The vulnerability of Ghana's agriculture to climate change is largely due to its dependence on rainfall. In Ayeduase, a small community in the Ashanti region, farmers are complaining about the change in rainfall patterns and rise in temperature.
My name is Edward Azuma. I am a farmer. I farm salad, lettuce, garden eggs, and spring onions. I have farmed for 25 years. Let's say about 10 years ago, the weather was stable. In the dry season, you can go and farm by the river banks without fear of flood. But now, you can't tell when it will rain. Even in the dry season, it rains. You can be farming during the dry season and it will rain, and your farm will get flooded. Now, there is a lot of risks, but at first, it wasn't like this. About 10 years ago, the weather was stable, but now, it's not stable. I farm around the river banks, and about 15 years now, anytime I try to farm during the dry season, then it rains, and the farm gets flooded, spoiling all the crops I have planted. At this time, every farming we do around the river banks is full of prayers. I am called Gilbert Bazori. I am a farmer. I plant cabbage, lettuce, and spring onions. I have worked as a farmer for 15 years. We all know that the dry season starts from January to February. But this year, the rain has started early. And when it rains in the dry season, it makes the soil become hot. So when we plant the crops, it can't grow. The roots get spoiled due to the heat in the soil. Sometimes we harvest what we expect, but most of the times we don't get what we expect. My name is Ejeku, but people call me Assemblyman. I am a farmer. I plant salad, cabbage and onions. For the rain and the sun, there is a time that it rains. But now is the dry season, and it has started raining small. For the climate change, during the dry season, the soil becomes hot. So we have to water the crops 2 times. Crops like garden eggs get spots due to the overheat in the soil when it starts raining.
The environment is changing. The rate at which climate change is affecting agriculture is alarming. We all have to do our part to be able to protect our environment as we depend on it for food.